Hi, I'm Igor. I'm a data science student in London, and welcome to another episode of this time series crash course. In this video, we're going to discuss one of the most popular forecasting models, autoregression. The things we will cover are what is autoregression, what are the requirements for an autoregressive model, how we fit an autoregressive model, and how we can do this all in Python. So let's get into it. On the screen now is a notebook that we're going to work through. That's going to tell us all about autoregression and how we fit autoregressive models inside Python. So let's first begin with an intro about just forecasting in general. So as I've written here, forecasting is a wide domain with many models, similar to your time series. In previous posts, we discussed the idea of exponential smoothing, but now we'll move on to another popular family, which is the ARIMA family, and particularly we're going to start with autoregression. And autoregression is probably one of the most applied and common models. It's not necessarily the best, but it's a really good initial building block towards our ARIMA, which is kind of like the gold standard for models nowadays. So autoregression is essentially kind of similar to autocorrelation in that it's a regression of values where your features are the previous lags. So as I've written here, autoregression is when you forecast a time series using some linear weighted combination of the previous values. And as we're regressing a target against itself, it's called autoregression. Pretty intuitive, makes sense to me. So as you can see here, what we have in this plot, we have yt, which is the value at time step t, and what we're trying to do is find the best value of phi1, phi2, phi p, or these are like our coefficients of the lag term, so the time series our previous time step, and a linear sum of all these. What is the best combination of these parameters that gives us the current time value? So in this case, like I've written here, y is the time series we're forecasting, phi's are the fit coefficients, and this epsilon is the error term, typically normally distributed, like white noise. And p is just a number of components we add, like lagged components we add to the model. And like I said, like it says here, if phi1 equals 1, where all the coefficients are 0, then it's a random walk. So as an example, if we're only estimating if phi is 1 and these are all 0, so y phi2 equals 0, or y to phi p equals 0, then we have to simply have yt equals c plus yt minus 1 plus epsilon t. So basically it's a random walk, right? It's the previous value plus some noise, and that's the definition of a random walk. So that's it. So that's all this is to autoregression. Remember, it's just a linear weighted sum of its lags times some coefficients, and the goal is to find its coefficients. So to build an autoregressive model, it is recommended to have a stationary time series. Stationarity is a requirement that is, pretty much in every single model we build. What it means is that the series doesn't exhibit any long-term trend or obvious seasonality, and its statistical properties stay constant through time. We'll just say why we need this in a moment, but basically because its properties are consistent, it belongs to the same distribution. I've done a whole video on stationarity, which you can check out in this playlist if you want to know more about it and how we achieve it. But in general, there's two ways of achieving it. We can stabilize the mean through differencing, and we can stabilize the variance through the logarithm or box transform. Box-Cox transform, that is. Again, I've discussed these topics before, so make sure to check out other videos if you're interested in learning more about those two methods. So, like I said, we need stationarity, but why? And kind of what I was saying before is that stationarity means our model has the same statistical properties through time, and because it has the same statistical properties, it therefore every data point belongs to the same distribution. And because it belongs to the same distribution, we can then fit the underlying distribution to our model. So things like maximum likelihood estimation, which I'm sure you've heard of, basically means and also needs our data to come from the same distribution. And if each data point is different to each other, then when we're trying to fit any parameter, it's just not going to work because it's invalid and the operation is just erroneous to the model. So we need it. So in other words, we can use deterministic methods such as MLE to fit the best parameters to our model. Essentially, these phi parameters, those are the ones we need to fit. And for that to be a valid assumption, we need to have that each data point belongs to the same probability distribution. Again, don't worry too much about this. Feel free to Google it, but that's kind of the intuition behind it. It's also nicer to have, right? It means we can work with these methods a lot easier, and a whole data set, model procedure fitting It's so much nicer when all the data belongs to the same distribution. Now, before we fit the model, we kind of want to determine what these p-values is, like what's the optimal p-value. We can obviously lag every single value in the past, but that's kind of overfitting the model ultimately, right? Typically in machine learning models, we don't want to, we want to get to values of p which are the most representative, but not overfitting, because that's not good, because then our model is just adapted to the train set, but not very good on the test set. So what we want to do is that we want to find the optimal value of p. And basically the way we can do this is through plotting the partial autocorrelation function. Again, done a video on this in the past, but it's just it's like the lags, the correlation of the lags to the current time step, ignoring and effect of any intermediate lags. Again, I'm not going into too much detail here. Please check out the other video if you're interested in learning more about partial autocorrelation. I'll link it somewhere on the screen here. And this partial autocorrelation plot basically measures how much certain lags directly correlate with each other. And from that, we can deduce which lags are the most statistically significant in affecting the current ones. We'll go over this, how we do this in the tutorial later. But a more thorough technique, and it's kind of similar, akin to parameter tuning, in that we just try multiple components and evaluate it and see which one gives the best performance on the test set. Again, subject to computational constraints, but normally this is quite feasible for a lot of time series models, because in general, time series data, we don't have that much data volume compared to cross-sectional data. So I hope that makes sense. The key things just remember is that autoregression is when you use the previous lags to estimate the future. You need to find the optimal number of lags. You can use that through just general trying every single one, or the partial autocorrelation function. And you need your data to be stationary beforehand so that you can adequately use fitting procedures such as a maximum likelihood estimation, because the data points will then all belong to the same distribution. Right, now let's go through a walkthrough to put this theory into practice, because it may all seem quite arbitrary. So we're going to start with just reading some data. This is a US airline passenger volume data set I've used throughout this whole course. It just shows the US airline passengers within the 1950s. Don't worry too much about the data. It's more for visualization, and it's quite an easy data set to work with because it's got like an obvious trend and a pretty consistent, or like seasonality, right? Again, this will all be linked in the description, this notebook, and also the data and the Medium article that this relates to. So if you want to learn more about this in your own time, or just have more of a readable format, then make sure to check out the description for those key resources if needed. Right, so like I was saying here, this time series that we got clearly has an obvious trend and seasonality. Therefore, we need to make it stationary. So we need to make sure that it's not increasing through time, and also these kind of fluctuations are on this kind of consistent level, they're not increasing as they are in this case that we can see on the screen. The way we do that is by we import this box-Cox transform from the SciPy stats package, and then we also do this .diff on that transformation to difference the remaining data. Again, I've done this before in a previous video, so I'm not going to spend too much time explaining it here. Make sure to check that video out on stationarity if you're interested. By applying this, and this will resultant distribution will look like, or data will look like. As you can see here, it's pretty stationary. The mean is pretty much 0, and these fluctuations are kind of on the same level. It's not increasing or decreasing through time, and there's no long-term trend. So to me, this data is adequately stationary. Now it's time to build the model. So the way we build this model is, first of all, by trying to find the number of lags we need. So the way we do that is by bringing in this plot PACF function. Again, we could just call this on the data that we made stationary, and the result will look like something like this. So what we see here is the lags at up to, I've specified here, did I specify here? No, I didn't, but it's up to roughly lag 23, that is. And it just shows you how well the historical ones correlate with the current one. So as you can see here, lag 12 correlates really well with this current data point, which makes sense because we have this kind of obvious yearly seasonality pattern, and this data is indexed by month. And so we're gonna have that, this data point is going to correlate quite likely with this data point. And that's something we notice here. But as you can see, it's all quite, there's quite a few that's statistically significant. but it's all kind of scattered around. I mean, in this case, I would go up to lag 13 probably, or 14 given this case, because these are all kind of like lie outside this statistically significant zone. But you see here, for example, lag 5 is not at all significant. So again, we could exclude that model or that value in building a model. You can also just simply iterate over all these values. That's also kind of a recommended approach because it's more robust and you're more likely to get the correct result you're after. So like I just said there, we're going to do that same idea and we're going to use AR select order. So what that's going to do is that it's going to select, it's going to try every single order. So it's going to have 1 component, 2 components, 3 components, and see which of those combination of components gives us the best result. So as you see, as I specified here, we've got 15. So it's going to try lags 1 to 15 and a combination of them all to see which ones will give the best results on our test data. And here, our test data is simply just indexed like this. I've just split it. The first 80% will be a training set, and the last will be the test set. And by doing this, we're just going to evaluate which number of lags are the best, and that'll be our final model. So we're simply calling this. Again, ignore all this. It's just the values about my indexing. Probably not the best approach, but again, it does the job. So now we've done that, we can call this model, and then, well, first we're going to transform the forecast. So we're going to call the model and forecast it. Then we're going to transform it back to the box cox, because remember we transformed it originally here in this transformation. So we're going to do the inverse box cox with this lambda function. Again, watch the box cox video if you're confused with the process here. I'm not going to spend too much time into it. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to this for loop. Again, don't worry too much about it. All this for loop is doing is that's going to inverse the difference in transform we applied. Then after this, we've got our final forecast, and then what we're going to do is we're going to plot it. So we're going to plot the train set, the test set, and the forecast, and let's see how that looks. So as you see here, it's pretty good. So we've got our train set in blue and our test set in orange, and this is our forecast in green. So overall, it's pretty good. I mean, to me, it's slightly over forecasting, particularly these drops here, but you can see it's captured a pattern quite well, and it's pretty accurate in my opinion. It's pretty good, but the problem with this data is that it's quite obvious and structured. Like, we know it needs to include 13 components because, well, if you include 13 components, you can pretty much capture the whole trend because it doesn't really change that much. You see it's very much up and down, the same sort of pattern year on year. But nevertheless, it's still a good example, and this is just simply how you apply autoregression in Python. It's very simple, using all these functions. And yeah, it's a great kind of baseline model that you can iterate further from. Let's quickly recap of the key points we discussed in this video. Autoregression is where you forecast the next value by some linear weighted combination of the previous lags. The reason it's called autoregression is because you're using the lags of the same series as features to forecast into the future. As we showed in the Python tutorial, this model does give pretty good results, and it's also very easy to use because of the SciPy and Stats models APIs we can utilize. If you're building a forecasting model, then I highly recommend you try out the autoregression, as it's a good baseline model and also provides decent results for most cases. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about time series and forecasting, then make sure you check out the other videos in this playlist. Also to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.